You won't believe what we're talking about today. This guy wants to go to Paris but just wants to escape the boredom of everyday life. Afterwards, the family atmosphere turned suffocating. When they argued, Albert accused Frank of breaking promises, asking, "Where's your courage?" "I gotta take responsibility. I can't let it slip away. Gotta own it to live the life I want." Frank just couldn't understand why give up everything when they could have a stable life. Why pursue a vague ideal life? Their talk deadlocked, and Frank washed his face. But then he accidentally saw Albert preparing to get rid of the kids' stuff, and at that moment, Frank's pent-up frustration couldn't be contained any longer. He rushed to Albert and demanded to know why. "Do you realize how serious this is? It's a breeze if handled in the first 12 weeks. We're just getting started. And of course, it's all for you. You wouldn't even want to know where's the time to do it." "Well, I think my belly's been turned upside down. It's a divine blessing. So we could raise kids in Paris. Frank tells me we could have a different life, but please don't make me stick around." Frank coldly dropped the moving plans, and Albert couldn't handle it. Didn't they already have 2 kids? Why leave the unborn one behind? They erupted into another fierce fight. What started as blame became a sharp exchange. A normal woman, a silly mother, won't spend a dime on these to have this baby. How will I survive? What a crazy fantasy. Those words shattered Albert completely. Paris was his last hope, now turned to despair. The fire inside him was fading, and Frank had calmed down too. He came in front of his wife and assured her days would get better, no more fighting, but that heavy air remained suffocating. Life seemed to regain a facade of calm. Frank got his promotion, while Albert was buried in chores and childcare. Life felt boring. As usual, they went to the bar with neighbors. To ease tension with his wife, Frank asked her to dance. Albert turned him down. The weight in his heart was still too heavy. Suddenly, the neighbor's wife felt unwell and had to leave early, but both cars were stuck, so Frank had to take care of the ride. After they left, just Albert and his neighbor stayed at the bar. He shared his woes, feeling he sacrificed much for family. Seeing no future for himself, Albert just wanted to find his old self back, while Frank seemed to have it all. High-paying job, 2 kids. Meanwhile, it felt like he was left with nothing but a hollow life. Then he invited the neighbor to dance. As the lively music played, he felt like he was back in his youthful days. Albert made an extreme choice, chatting in car with neighbor to revenge the promise maker. Frank was totally clueless. He was still guilty about the issue with his female colleague. That day, he came to his wife, sincerely confessing everything. "I've had sexual relations with others a few times." Frank had anticipated a fierce reaction from his wife, but he was taken aback when Albert appeared completely indifferent. As they argued, the neighbor visited, and the foolish son exposed Frank's hypocrisy at dinner. He accused Frank of making Albert pregnant to stay. Frank's face darkened, and the table's atmosphere froze. Sensing the awkwardness, the neighbor couple hurriedly whisked their silly son away. Frank turned to his wife, urging her not to believe them. Albert burst into laughter at this, as if the madman's voice echoed the truth. He was the madman. The words she said to her husband seemed to be self-mockery as well. Her laughter carried a chill of bitterness. Albert's disdain for her husband kept growing. "Why do you get to eat so comfortably in my house? Why did you marry me? Why do you want my kids? Why don't you just take care of this matter when you can?" Albert was stunned by Frank's words and didn't know how to reply. Frank returned to the room, puzzled by his once beloved. They knew each other too well. Every word cut deep. For the ones who know you best know where to stab hardest. Frank gradually calmed down, and when he came downstairs, he couldn't find her anywhere. Splashing Albert walking alone into the woods, Frank hurried after her, only to find she wanted to be alone until night fell. Albert didn't return home, while Frank sat silently in the living room, staring blankly at the direction his wife had left. He could only drown his sorrows in drink for all the messy days, when he suddenly noticed, amid the clinking glasses, Albert, in an apron, smiled as he made breakfast, that gentle smile declaring peace after chaos. Frank cautiously tried to chat with her, and Albert responded politely. Next moment, Albert started talking about his job, making Frank feel like he was in a dream, as if all yesterday's woes had vanished. As he was about to leave, he paused to check in with her, and after receiving her reassuring nod, Frank headed to work at ease. Once she waved him off and he completely disappeared, Albert couldn't hold back her sorrow any longer and cried as she washed the dishes. Subsequently, she made a phone call to her neighbor, instructing them to take good care of the children and ensuring that everything else was properly arranged. Albert fetched rubber tubing, hot water, towels, spread the bath towel on the floor, and shut the door. At that moment, Albert seemed to descend into the abyss of despair. After a long while, he emerged barefoot, looking pale. But inside, he felt a hint of relief and freedom, exactly the escape he had been seeking all his life. Unfortunately, the surgery failed, and suddenly Albert turned and left the room. Perhaps he still had a glimmer of hope for life.